Lisa Dinh is a salon owner, hairstylist, and colorist. She was born and raised in Toronto and has been in the beauty industry now for over 15 years and a salon owner for 7. Lisa is also a global color ambassador for Moroccanoil. Hair is her passion, and she's dedicated her life to learning, innovating, and creating. She specializes in a technique called Foilayage, recreating balayage highlights in foils. She loves face framing, lived-in dimensional balayage looks with contrast and lightness. Lisa also loves transformations from dark to light and long, layered haircuts. She's worked very hard to build her own brand and create a salon that she's incredibly proud of, and she loves building relationships and building teamwork. Over the years, she's learned to always stay true to herself, believe in yourself and your goals, and never give up in your dreams. I am joined by Lisa. Lisa, welcome to the Volume Up podcast. How's it going?
Not bad. Everything's going great. How are you, Jeff?
Doing very, very well. You're calling in from Canada, which is exciting. We've got an international guest, y'all. Most of our guests are from the US, so this will be fun. We're going to talk about all things related to your background. So let's get started at the beginning. Did you always know you were going to go into beauty?
You know what? I learned at a very young age that I wanted to get into beauty. My mom took me to get my hair done when I was 9 years old. And I got that Christina Aguilera blonde and red highlights. And
Yes.
honestly,
Yes.
I just felt like the coolest 9-year-old. And
You probably
I
were.
think that really sparked my interest in the beauty industry, because I just felt like, being in grade 4, having that done, I felt so confident. And I think that really got me into the industry.
Oh, I love that. So in terms of going in, what was schooling like? Talk to us about that. Is it any different in Canada? I don't know. I'm terribly ignorant.
In Canada, I think it's fairly the same. We go to hair school. It's about like a 10-month to a year program. And then after that, you go out and you do about 1,500 hours assisting. So I don't know if that's the same over there, but that's kind of how it works here, where we go to hair school and then you can choose a salon to do your apprenticeship for. So that's kind of what I did here as well. And then, I took a 10-month program. As soon as I was out, I went straight into the hair salons.
And what was that like for you? Did you feel like you were prepared from schooling to be in the salon?
To be honest, no. I think a lot of it is school gives you the foundation, but coming out of school, it's a whole nother ball game. Like, I feel like every stylist working in a salon, once we hit that floor, it is so different from what we were taught in school. So I did not feel prepared at all.
I feel like this is honestly something that comes up quite often this very podcast. People talking about school being, as you said, like foundational, but not enough. So, okay, we are doing our apprenticeship. We're working out. We're behind the chair. What made you sort of feel like you wanted to continue? Like, what was it about that experience where you're like, this is for me, I'm going to keep going? I'd love to hear about that.
So I just knew that there was more to this industry than what it was coming out of hair school and being an assistant. I was like so hungry, so driven. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And that's when I learned that working in salons, when you start as an assistant, you don't get that. You don't get that passion and all those opportunities when you start. So for me, I knew it was there, and I just knew that I had to push from the beginning of being an assistant to get to that end where there was endless opportunities. And I feel like that's what kept me going, was like, I knew that there was so much more on the other side.
I love that. Okay, so on the other side, we're going to do a fast forward a bit, which is that you are a salon owner, and you've been a salon owner for half of your career, which is not a small feat. So talk to us about like, why did you think like, ultimately, this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a salon owner, because a lot of people do not go that route. Would love to hear it.
Yeah. So how it turned out was that I actually wanted to find a salon where I could grow and I could like become a stylist. And I feel like I was in and out of so many salons in my career. I couldn't find a salon that, would mentor me. I couldn't find a salon where I had that opportunity to grow. So because of that, what I ended up doing was I was freelancing for 5 years after working out of all these salons, because I just got to the point where I really wanted to grow as a stylist. And since I couldn't find that, after the 5 years, I decided to open my own salon. And it wasn't something that I knew early on in hair school. It was something that kind of, since I couldn't find that salon, I created it, where a place where I could feel safe, where we could grow and reach our full potential. I wanted a salon to have everything that I didn't have when I came out of hair school.
Let's go into that. What did you feel like you didn't have? And what was important as you were thinking through, like, I'm going to have the salon that needed to be there?
I felt like I didn't have mentorship. I think a lot of us coming out of hair school, we want that. We want someone to kind of take us in,
Mhm.
to mentor us. And I feel like early on as a stylist, that's so important in your career. And I just felt like I couldn't find that. And all the salons I was working at, like everyone had promised, once you're an assistant, we're going to teach you, how to do this, how to do
Yep.
that. And once I got on the floor, I hit the floor. All I did was clean. And I understand that's the job of an assistant, but the difference between our salon is we make sure that our assistants are learning at the same time. So I think that's what's missing. That lack of like leadership was missing. And just like, having a leader that like inspired me as a hairstylist, I think that was missing. And that's something that I really wanted to bring to the table when I opened my own salon.
Oh, I love that. When you're looking for people to join your team, what are the sort of characteristics? What makes for a successful team member for you?
Great question. So I did go through a lot of trial and error with this because, being a salon owner, I mean, everything was new to me.
Yep.
Managing a team was new, leading a team, hiring a team. I think what was so important was I chose character over skill. And the reason for that was because you can't change character and attitude, but you can develop skill. So with that, I would interview stylists asking, what's your 5-year goal and what are you looking for? And I could tell right away who had the right attitude and who was in the mindset to learn. And I knew that those stylists, we could teach them and mold them to be great stylists versus if a stylist came in and they had, amazing skills, but they didn't have the right attitude, there's no longevity in that.
Well put. I just love when people lay it out in this way because you're right. Like it makes perfect sense. Like you could learn how to do X, Y, Z, but if you're not a good person, maybe we shouldn't be working together to begin with. Talk to us a little bit about the stylist in terms of the setup. So are most people working for you directly? Are they renting booths? Would love to hear about that.
So our structure when I first opened, I wanted to make sure we were all a team. So in terms of that, it's all commissioned stylists. Everyone works as employees. And I just found that created a lot of team unity. There was no separation in having, chair rental. And I really loved that. I loved that we could work together as a team. Everyone felt like a team. So our structure is completely all commissioned stylist. And I did start on the side chair rental, but it's completely separate from our salon. And that was really interesting too.
Talk to us about that then. What was interesting about it?
So what was interesting was since being a salon owner for, the 7 years, a half of my career, I realized that once stylists do get to the pivotal point of, building that clientele and being senior stylists, they're going to want more. And I think what I didn't realize, because I've never worked in a salon long enough to, become a senior stylist until I opened my own, was that stylists will eventually get to the point where either one, they're going to stay a commissioned stylist, or two, they're going to go off on their own, becoming an independent chair rental stylist. So what I wish I would have known early on is that or what I could have done differently is I would have structured the business where when the stylists were ready to go on their own, that I would have a chair rental available for them. So that way they still stay within the business, but you have that opportunity for them as well.
That makes sense. Lisa, do you still work behind the chair?
I do. So I kind of do it all right now. I'm playing many roles. So I work behind the chair 3 to 4 days a week, manage the salon. I'm an ambassador for Moroccanoil and I'm starting a new business venture. So for me, I love the creativity of it all. And I feel like even if I cut down being behind the chair, I still need that creative aspect of being behind the chair, but also running the business too.
All right. So from your end, as a business owner, as a salon owner, what do you feel like is the most rewarding part?
The most rewarding part is honestly seeing the team do well. I think once you become a salon owner, that leadership role really takes over. It's no longer just about me, even though the name of the salon is under my name, it's now about the entire team. As I feel like the most rewarding part is when I get to see us all thrive and it makes me feel like, okay, great. I built the salon that I had wanted for myself when I came out of hair school.
I love that.
So that's super rewarding. It's just rewarding to know that like I was able to do that for others.
Well, let's flip it. The most difficult part.
Hmm. There are many challenges, I think, to being a salon owner. I think the most difficult part is managing expectations.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I think that that goes to managing expectations of not only clients but of of staff and of the team as well, because
Mhm.
like the expectations are so different for everyone. So I think like the biggest challenge was me learning how to manage those expectations, but also learning how to lead a team with different personalities.
Sure.
Like everyone's so different with how they receive feedback, so that was a learning curve for me.
And certainly not something that they bring up in cosmetology school. So we connected originally based on you contributing to an article on thetease.com as regards inflation. Inflation is obviously
Yes.
quite a hot topic in our industry around the world. You're in Canada, we're in the US. Would love to understand at this point, several months out from when we first connected, how do you feel like inflation is impacting how you're running your salon?
So I still feel like inflation is still such a big thing that's happening this year right now. It's causing
Mhm.
salons to slow down because, with inflation and everything going up in price, a lot of clients are being a lot more mindful. They're
Mhm.
thinking a lot more about their budget, and hair now has become more of a luxury service. So I definitely think like inflation has affected the beauty industry as a whole. In terms of what we've done, we've really worked on cutting down our product costs because that is part of inflation. And we're really focusing on what can we do for the client if it's out of their budget, what can I do to still get them in the salon?
Well, I love that you said we, and you had mentioned how important it was to you to build a team for your salon space previously. So, what are those conversations like with the team as regards like working together to help each other out? Because it sounds a little bit different than others who are like worried about themselves and their own clientele.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of meetings where we're talking about like everything that's happened in the last few years, with the pandemic, with the closures, with the price
Mhm.
increase, just making sure that we're all on the same page, that everyone's comfortable with if a client walks in and that budget is out of their budget, what can we do to help them? I think having those conversations are important because like since we are a team, I can't have one stylist be like, okay, this doesn't fit your budget, well then we can't do the service. They have to adapt, and in these times like we really have to adapt in creating, if it's a service where it's a face frame or just a toner, or if it's an express service, at least that still keeps that client there when
Mhm.
times pick back up and inflation hopefully slows down over the next year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've just given some gems in terms of advice, but would love to hear from you. Is there anything in particular for others that you might want to advise that they consider as they're sort of navigating inflation for themselves?
I think considering, yes, product costs, but let's just say someone does own a salon or they have an assistant,
Mhm.
considering the hours that you're putting into that too. Because what I'm kind of challenged with right now is, if it's not as busy as it was, having assistants there and having product costs, everything adds to an expense. So
Mhm.
really going through your numbers, seeing where you can cut down other than products. Um, I think that helps. And if it's an independent stylist, with inflation, just creating express services that will help keep the revenue up. And I think a lot of stylists are not creating express services. And I think that's really what's going to help them get through this year.
Mm. Well, I love that. That's certainly something to keep in mind. Another thing that I'd love to chat a little bit about is tipping. So, in the
Mhm.
States, at least, tipping is a huge part of how stylists are making a living. The recession and inflation being what it is, we've already talked about people, consumers viewing hair services as a luxury. This is
Yeah.
impacting how much they're willing to spend in general. And then tipping on top, it's like, these navigation points that are causing lots of, conflict and stress. So from your end,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts? Like, do you think that salons should consider doing away with tipping? Going
Yeah.
to, yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. You know what? Like, since everything has happened in the last few years, at least in Canada, I found that our clients have been really empathizing with a lot of us and like with everything that happened with the closures and inflation, that like they've still been tipping. So in terms of tipping etiquette here in Toronto that we've experienced so far, our clients have still been tipping, between 15 to 20%. And I feel like they understand that everyone's going through this. So we haven't changed any of that etiquette. We kind of leave it up to the client if they want to tip or not tip. And at the end of the day, it's totally up to them. And I think just like having that option is nice because, stylists, we work so hard. We put so many hours in. And again, it's totally up to the client. But I think like giving them that option is nice because, if they can't, we understand as well.
Yep. I love that. Very well put. Let's talk a little bit about why you decided to create your own salon. So in doing a little bit of pre-research, there was conversation around, and we've even talked about it here on this podcast so far, wanting to create a space that you didn't have for yourself. So I would love to understand a little bit more about that experience, because I know that a lot of our listeners have felt similarly. Could you talk to us a little bit about, to the extent you're comfortable, your experience with some of the places that you had been prior to creating your salon?
I had a really tough time in the beginning of my career because I felt like at the time there was no Instagram, there was no social media. It used to be like you would go to the mall salons, whoever you got as a new talent, a junior, senior was who you got. So what I really struggled with was I couldn't find a salon where like I could grow in as a stylist. And what I think a lot of stylists are challenged with is they end up working in a salon and not feeling fulfilled. And I really felt like a lot of the salons, the owners didn't appreciate me as an assistant. And I did feel mistreated in many ways, in a sense of a lot of the owners would keep us as an assistant. They didn't let, I really wanted to do color. And I remember working at the last salon, he wouldn't let me do color. And I was like, please just let me do color. That was something that I think was a really missed opportunity, because I felt like if I had a salon where I could do color and really thrive in, that maybe I wouldn't have a salon today, because I would just feel appreciated. So I think what a lot of stylists are not feeling is appreciated. And I think a lot of owners, at least, back in the day, really kind of just never gave those opportunities and never saw the importance of giving assistant those opportunities. That assistant could end up being one of the strongest colorists in the salon, bringing so much revenue. And I think that's what a lot of stylists feel, is they don't feel that appreciation. So I definitely felt that early on. And that's what led me to open a salon.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that experience, but certainly understand why this might have been the impetus for doing what you're doing now. And we've talked a little bit about the importance of mentorship, and for you building up a team and working with your team members to develop their skill sets. How do you go about that as you're sort of doing all of these other things? We talked about wearing a bunch of different hats. How does mentorship happen at your salon?
Yeah. So, very early on, when I did have more time, I would come in on my days off. I would stay after clients and really take the time to invest in the girls. If they would bring a model in, we would go over the models together. And as my schedule just gets more busy and juggling everything, what I told them was, if I can't invest my time, I will send you to education to make sure that you're still getting education. And I had this conversation recently because my schedule has got more busy. And as an owner, how do you mentor girls when you have no time?
Yeah.
So their time is just as valuable. They're there to learn, they're there to grow. So now I send them for education. If I can't give them that the initial investment myself, at least they're getting that education through sending them to classes.
Oh, I love that. How are you going about finding that education that's up to your standard?
You know what? There's so many amazing artists on Instagram, and I feel like when I follow them and I see they're having classes in Toronto, that's like a no-brainer. Once they're in Toronto, we just go to their classes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about mentorship. Were there any mentors along the way that sort of stuck out to you in terms of helping to guide your career?
So there was a huge mentor. I've really always looked up to Guy Tang. He's been an idol of mine early on in my hair career. And I remember just loving his work, following him, commenting all the time. And then he actually ended up following me back. No hesitation. I booked my flight. I went to New Orleans, and the first person I met was Guy Tang.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was amazing because like I was meeting him and I was so early on in my career and he gave me the validation I needed. He's like, I've seen your Instagram, your work is great. And all it took was me feeling validated by that, because it's like when you look up to someone at that high stature and they give you that validation, it almost like gives you that confidence in your career. And I remember by just doing that, I came back to Toronto and I went from being booked 2 weeks to 3 months to 6 months to a year. And it was crazy because he didn't have to do that for me.
Mm.
And I just felt like it just took one person believing me for me to believe in myself. And I genuinely loved that he did that for me because he didn't have to.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was amazing because we continued to have a relationship. He came to Toronto. I got to go on stage with him. He went to visit the salon. And I just think like that really made me believe in the industry. And it made me believe that there's still genuine good artists out there that, you know, do pay it forward. And he was one of them.
I love that. That makes so much more sense now in terms of like threading your story together. I love that you had that experience. Shout out to Guy Tang for making that happen. And shout out to you for now paying it forward with mentoring your team and followers and everybody out there. How do you feel like the industry could do better to lift each other up?
I mean, I feel like the industry could do better by just, and I know that's the thing is here in Canada, Toronto, I feel like we're really supportive. We're constantly liking each other's posts, you know, congratulating each other. And there's really like, I don't feel like there's any competition. We're all kind of in our own lane. But I think how we can really help each other and support each other again is like, if it's something that a stylist can't do, sending them to another stylist doesn't affect your success. So if it's something that I don't specialize in, I don't mind referring them out to another stylist here in Toronto that specializes in that. And that won't hinder my success at all. I think that's what stylists should do is if it's something that we don't feel comfortable with, send them to another stylist that is comfortable doing it. And that really supports the other stylists as well, because maybe that's their strong point and that sends, you know, them another client, and it doesn't hurt your success at all by doing that.
And they might even send somebody to you in return. We love reciprocity. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Moroccanoil, which I love. This is not an ad, but we're going to talk about the brand. How did you get involved with Moroccanoil Pro?
So they reached out to me actually last year in January. And I remember they were telling me that they were coming out with a color line. Which was amazing because I remember using Moroccanoil when that argan oil came out in high school, and I saved every drop of it. Like it was like, yeah. So that was for me a big deal when I saw that email come in. So the first thing I had mentioned to them was send me the product. I want to try it. I want to see how it works. And for me, I'm a big believer. If I believe in something, then I will stand behind it. They sent it to me. I tried it. I loved it. And then I signed with them in March.
Congrats. What does the role entail? I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so the role is a global ambassador partnership, and that entails me doing education on stage, traveling. It involves doing photo shoots, interviews, social media posts. So everything kind of an ambassador does that fits that role. That's kind of like what I do as well. So I'm their Canadian ambassador, and I just re-signed with them again recently.
We love that. We love that for them. Yeah. Good on them for re-signing you. What is your most favorite thing that you've done thus far with them?
You know what? I think it really pushed me out of my element, doing stage work and photo shoots. And, you know, every day when you're in the salon behind the chair, doing the same conventional thing every day, it really challenges you when you do stage work, because that's something that's completely different from just sitting in the salon. So I think like what really helped me grow over the last year was 1, stage work, and 2, doing photo shoots. Because it's out of the norm of just a hair picture. It's kind of like you're in a campaign and it's a whole different ballgame. So I think like just that alone really helped me grow as a stylist, and it's really pushing me out of my comfort zone. And I'm looking forward to doing that again this year, because I feel like this year I'm a lot more confident. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is the challenges, but me being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Which is a lesson that we could all learn to from time to time. All right, Lisa, we're going to get into our quick takes before we let you go, which are the questions that we ask of all of our guests on this podcast. So the first question that we got is, what is the first product that you remember owning, beauty or hair?
The first product I remember owning, and that's the funny thing is all I can think about is the iconic Moroccan argan oil. I feel like that was the first big beauty product that I was like, oh my God, I feel so
Have to have it.
luxurious was
Yep.
in that product. And
I
that,
love
that
that.
really comes to mind. Yeah.
I feel like that's honestly one of mine too. Okay. Are you superstitious? And if so, about what?
So I'm not superstitious, but I believe that most hairdressers are like almost like, I wouldn't use the word empath, but I think a lot of us are very intuitive. And the reason is we work with people every day. And because of that, I think we're able to pick up energy.
Yep.
Also, we can get drained really easily and depleted. So I think like instead of being superstitious, I'm more about energy. Like I can pick up energy. When you walk into a room, I can feel the energy. And I think a lot of hairdressers have this ability.
I feel like you're
Yeah.
very right. You're very right about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would play you in a biopic about your life?
Good question. Who would play me? That I'm actually not sure. I mean, just based off of my story, Jeff, who do you think could play me?
Is always a shock to me when people are like, it's going to be this person. Maybe the
Yeah.
actress doesn't exist yet, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I would
Maybe
be
I'm
definitely
creating
interested
a
in watching.
story for that. So
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
There's more character development that has to happen before this biopic
Yeah.
comes together. All right. What do you consider to be the ultimate comfort food?
The ultimate comfort food for me would be pho. My background is Vietnamese, so I feel like pho is just soupy. It's hearty. After a long day of doing hair, it's just comfort. So that would be my comfort food.
Love that. And now I'm hungry. Say that you're on a deserted island and you can only bring 3 beauty products with you. Caveat, you don't have to worry about drinking. You've got water, you've got food, there's shelter. Like you're just worried about like, what are the products you're bringing along with you? The like must-haves. We are product junkies on this podcast. We want to know, what are they?
So could it be beauty related hair or makeup?
Whatever the 3 products are. If it's beauty, it's hair.
Okay.
Lay it on us.
I'm going to say 1 sunscreen SPF, because if you're on a desert island, you want to make sure that your skin is protected. So SPF, a moisturizer would be great. Second thing, I know we're on an island, but I would bring a curling iron with me because I would still want to feel good about myself. So
there's nothing wrong with that. Is there a brand that you swear by?
You know what? I really love the Mint tools just because it's a long curling iron rod, and it's just so easy to use. So I would say that curling iron, SPF. And third, if I can bring a last beauty item, I'm going to say hair oil.
Plug.
I think being a hairstylist plays a lot into it because when you're on the beach or anytime I go away, even if I'm on an island, the main thing I'm concerned about is my skin and my hair. So
that's honest, Lisa.
Yeah.
That's very, very true to life. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Before we let you go, where can people keep up with you?
So you guys can keep up with me on my page, Lisa Dinh Hair Studio. I also post a lot on my personal as well, which kind of has both my personal life and my hair life, which is at Lisa T. Dinh.
Amazing. And we will link them in the show notes so people can just click through and go ahead and follow. Thank you for coming on.
Amazing. Thank you so much.